So thank you once again, everyone, for joining in. This is Krishna Prabhu. Shortly, you can call me KP. I am from NASCOM Center of Excellence, Data Science and Artificial Intelligence. I take care of all the technology-related aspects in our Center of Excellence. And I'm also joined by my colleague, Supriya, who is heading all the marketing initiatives and communications in our COE. And we have also our partners from E2E Networks, Tarun, as well as Hubert, who has also joined in the call. Briefly, we will give an introduction, go around and then give an introduction of each one of us before we start. And let me kick off this web meeting by giving you a brief introduction of what we are going to discuss today, and then hand over it to Tarun and Hubert to take it from there. So this initiative, this is the Artificial Intelligence HPC Labs initiative, is one among many programs which we are running within our Center of Excellence. And we had started brainstorming about this almost like more than a year ago. So we do a lot of work in our Center of Excellence by interacting very closely with the industry and the MSMEs, innovators, academia, and so on. So we, of course, our COE is specifically focusing on AI and the data science related aspects. Repeatedly, we came across some of those areas where it is very crucial for us to resolve to further accelerate the adoption as well as the innovation of AI in India as a whole. So this is nothing but enabling those niggling areas which has been given us a feedback by these MSMEs. So that is what we are going to look at today. At the end of it, hopefully you will all benefit from this, and thank you for all the MSMEs and innovators who have given us those feedback in the past. And just to highlight a few of them, the process per se, before we get into what exactly has been the ask. Of course, the MSMEs came back to us highlighting these critical areas. The top 5 which are standing out, let me give a very brief introduction on those. So the first one being access to the AI HPC environment itself. So we all know that when we are specifically focusing on any AI related problems, say any computer vision related model development or training, or say NLP related model development and so on. The one thing that technically challenging is access to the infrastructure and computing capability itself, which almost always calls for graphical processing unit specific compute capability. There is a GPU compute capability. So that is one aspect, the first aspect. And the second aspect being the flexibility in terms of even if they are MSMEs, there is they require a flexibility in terms of say the varying loads, either because you are training your model and later on, once you have completed training your model, your loads go down and you don't find any use for your infrastructure if you set it up in-house. And the second part of the same flexibility being if you're a service organization, then your AI loads are going to vary based on the service requirements of yourself internally as an organization or your customers. So the flexibility of idling capacity or doing away with the idling capacity was also another key criteria which came out in our discussions. And the third one being, and this is also a very crucial one, because startups typically and the MSMEs typically work on very tight budgets. So they don't have access to investing in a capital expenditure upfront because the AI HPC, as you are aware, is very expensive to get access to very high compute capabilities. Say some of those requirements which came back to us in our extensive interaction is they want access to anything starting from say V100, say 1080p NVIDIA GPUs and all the way up to V100 and P100 GPUs. So that's a varying, that is the scale of the variation in the loads, apart from the CPUs, the gold class CPUs from Intel supported infrastructure. So that is the third aspect, and then comes the other aspects, say, of course, related to the expenditure itself. Other aspects like say the data transfer costs itself. Uh, of course, I wanted to highlight the fact that this is NASSCOM being a representative of different companies, that's IT companies in India. This is not positioned as a competition to anyone, but to supplement the acceleration of MSMEs in India. That's the way it has been positioned. So we are grateful for the inputs from several other industry bodies also, specifically to name a few, like say Intel, Nvidia, and Amazon, IBM. All of them have played a crucial role in giving us a feedback on this particular initiative, apart from those hundreds of MSMEs. And of course, those four are the criteria. And last but not the least, uh, the criteria, the fifth criteria being to comply with some of these policy related guidelines as to keeping the personally identifiable data within the borders of the country and the geography and so on. That's also another crucial area we are looking for, especially in applications like banking or finance, those kind of aspects. So I think our partnership with E2E Networks will solve all these issues which MSMEs have raised in the past, and hope we will get access to a better infrastructure going forward, and it will help you accelerate the development of AI and innovations around that. And with that, let me hand over the session to Tarun. Um, and this is actually set up as a more or less an interactive session. So please feel free to give in your feedback in the Q&A. You can type in your questions in the Q&A. We can actually respond back when Tarun gets a break in between. Yeah, thank you very much. Over to you, Tarun.
Yeah, thanks, Krishna, and thank you for highlighting some very, very important concerns from the MSME ecosystem. And we would certainly like this to be an interactive session. So mostly, we are focusing on the business and market aspects of the AI-driven compute, how it can help our country and how it can help in generation of large employment, as well as how it can enable us to do things that are not generally possible by using people and rule-driven software by default. So how enabling AI is enabling newer marketplaces for Indian startups. So that's mainly what we want to talk about over here. And so like somebody mentioned, like the screen is not clearly visible. Is Pratul, is the screen visible now? And for everyone else?
Yeah, we can see your screen now, Tarun.
Okay, great. So I am Tarun. I am the co-founder of E2E Networks. We started as a contractless compute startup in 2009, and we have serviced out of 35 unicorns, like I think 3 or 4 of them during the course of our life in the last 11 years. So many of the unicorns like Zomato and HealthCard and 1mg and Car Dekho, they began their life on E2E Networks infrastructure and ran their compute infrastructure on E2E for many, many years. Sorry. Yeah, so we are also listed on the National Stock Exchange SME platform. So I'm supposed to make this mandatory statement about uh, safe harbor, all the boilerplate stuff. Okay, so something about us, we have been around since 2009. We have over 1500 plus active customers, and we have serviced thousands of customers till now. We provide software-defined cloud infrastructure, mainly using open source software, and mostly developed in-house at E2E. So we are not like really dependent on any software licenses for running our infrastructure. So we have focused mainly on high performance workloads. So where people are looking for something beyond uh, a GoDaddy kind of hosting, like where they are looking for a cloud. Uh, this is very similar to where Linode and DigitalOcean are positioned, but we have a lot more focus on the GPUs than either of them. And we have gone ahead to create the API-driven self-service experience for developers and data scientists and DevOps personnel on our infrastructure. And we tend to always favor the latest, greatest CPU and GPUs which are available from the OEMs. So, for example, like Intel, we are on Cascade Lake Refresh. So almost all the machines you buy today would be either AMD Rome Epic or Intel Cascade Lake Refresh or NVIDIA Ampere or Volta series or Tesla series. So almost always like the latest two series of GPUs or CPUs. And we have done plenty of integration to create a standardized GPU environment using NVIDIA's partnership and enabled the both the vGPU and VDWS platform as well as the NVIDIA GPU container platform, the NGC platform. So this allows for very standardized deployment in production for both inference, training, retraining, and recommendation systems uh, in a way that is very standard from the point of view of like being able to take that NGC container anywhere, whether on your desktop, whether on the cloud, and being able to run it. So that has been a big focus area for us to document how to run the NGC platform on top of our GPU compute infrastructure. And so we have offices in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Mumbai. So we have, and of course Delhi and Vellore and Chennai to enable like MSMEs and startups to quickly reach out to us through our community outreach initiatives. Okay, so we will talk more about our GPU infrastructure, but let's first talk about like where we are with regard to the artificial intelligence. Like, what is artificial intelligence? What's the big deal about AI? So traditionally, of course, like whether software as a service or whether software systems have been built as rule-based systems. So in a software, you would build static or dynamically generated rules, and you feed the data into the rule-based system, and it generates the answers and the output for you. So traditionally, that was the kind of software that was built. Now, uh, uh, there was of course like some probabilistic modeling around how to treat data. So Bayesian models were built in stuff like anti-spam systems and natural language processing, and then this was applied to many other fields in the computer vision for labeling what sort of object is this, what's the probability that this is the object that we are saying this object is. And that came to be a newer model where you took a large data set and trained a model using that data set and generated a new model artifact to be able to do inference for you based on the probabilistic rules generated by the training data that you provided to the model. So now this is intelligence, but this intelligence is of course very different from the kind of human intelligence that we talk about. Now, human intelligence and artificial intelligence, like they work on very different models. So for a human, like recognizing like this is a new animal is easy. For an artificial intelligence system, uh, something is new or whether something is to be fit into an existing model, like it depends on the uh, to a very large extent the biases of an artificial intelligence system are dependent on the data on which it has been trained and how it has been trained, and the understanding of the data and edge cases by the people training those model artifacts. So anyway, let's talk about some of the applications of the AI. Sorry. So, so before that, let's very quickly talk about like how artificial intelligence can actually transform the data ecosystem in India. So, like as we are all aware that like the number of people connected to the internet has exponentially grown. So this is 2018 data where more than 850 million people in India were connected to the internet, and there was a projection that like almost 220 petabytes in 2018 would grow to 2025, and I think like in the current scenario that is largely going to be true. So this 20,000 petabyte data consumption by 2025 might be even accelerated to 2024 or 2023. So the number of unicorns in India has grown. So from 2018, I think it was 18 or 19. Now it has become like 35. With within the last year itself, I think like 11 new unicorns have come up. The source of the data is mentioned. So essentially, we are talking about like the current paradigm of like how we process data and how quickly we need the insights and results from that data is drastically changing. So we recently heard about like so we of course everyone knows about Instagram. So like about 10-15 people were able to create a billion-dollar company in a span of like a year and few months, and even this is now being exceeded by like teams of uh, 4 or 5 people who have built like a billion-dollar company. So that only becomes possible with the powerful compute acceleration that is available today. So, for example, like on NLP, like it is common to talk about like a billion data points in a single model uh, running on latest clusters of uh, 800 ampere kind of GPUs, and being able to do like understanding of the natural language, so or generation of natural language. Now India of course like kind of like is a bit late to the party. Like there are of course like a lot of Indians are creating companies in the Silicon Valley ecosystem, and also the Bangalore ecosystem is also producing AI startups. So mainly what we have seen today is that like the data analytics ecosystem has already generated like unicorns. So for example, Databricks, uh, which has been the biggest contributor to Apache Spark 3.0, which now works on the GPU driven ecosystem. The CUDA libraries are enabled by default on Apache Spark 3.0 onwards and speeds it up. So that has been a unicorn. And then of course like data analytics has seen like dozens and dozens of unicorns being born and getting enabled by the compute acceleration that GPU software can provide, GPU's underlying libraries can provide by integrating with the data platforms. Now the current opportunity, so like data analytics opportunity is like quite mature. So it has been like maturing for many years now, and we see like lot of Indian companies working in that area. So there of course like people have started to use both data storage platforms which are enabled, for example, Blazing SQL to kind of like ingest vast quantities of data very, very quickly uh, directly into the GPU memory and then using it to process, and seeing like speed ups of the order of whatever used to happen in days is now happening in minutes and hours. Uh, so like one part is that. The second part is that like we are increasingly seeing usage of NLP in the areas of support. Now, there is, of course, there is a huge leg up that many of the largest companies of the world have by their direct access to consumer assistant devices which can hear your speech and either play music for you or give you status updates on the shopping. So they have access to all this rich set of data from all over the world. Now, potentially, what is happening with data as oil-centered laws that India is trying to bring up for non-personal data. So this could potentially help startups by compulsorily licensing this rich source of anonymized data for startups to train their data models for NLP, especially in the areas of automatic speech recognition, and build domain specific output which are independent of the kind of hyperscale cloud you use. So we are very, very hopeful that if the laws are in place, then this could potentially become like a very rich source of market opportunity for startups to exploit. Now, of course, like then in the areas of emotions, so understanding the natural language and associate emotions with that, and then display those emotions in the form of potentially a video or an animation is another area which would kind of like be very helpful in increasing the adoption of NLP based chat systems in the real world. So right now, I think we all have tried the NLP systems deployed by various travel portals, and sometimes like NLP plus rule based systems deployed by very large B2C startups. And we can't but help feel that like, okay, this is dumb. Now, of course, these are early days, and a lot of the data these people are generating through their customers, including emotions into the understanding of speech, is going to go a long way. And this also is an area of opportunity for startups. So, so it's not just that NLP is trying to replace humans, but NLP systems can be used to augment the support, which is one of the primary use cases for NLP to do things. Then, of course, there are many other areas where like there is no limit to the amount of number of things you could do by developing a machine-driven understanding of the natural language. And India presents a very unique market over here. Like we have the largest number of languages and dialects and the various ways in which people express themselves. So it represents a massive opportunity. Now, along with this massive opportunity, what we have seen in the NLP world is that like you constantly need to have like reinforcement learning of your pre-trained models so that they are constantly improving. And NLP seems to be like very compute intensive in terms of the acceleration required by the NLP pipelines. Now, there have been estimates that the NLP startups actually spend almost 15 to 20 or maybe even 25% of their revenue uh, into compute and processing. Now, a very important point was raised by Krishna that like, how do you provide like a a if value centered platform for Indian startups to kind of like compete in this kind of a market where the cost of compute makes a difference to the ultimate valuation of a startup. So for example, if a startup had a gross margin of uh, 40, 50 or 60% as a AI startup, and compute costs actually like 25%. So like if you have the opportunity to increase your gross margin from 50 to 65% by having 60% cheaper compute, then potentially the market cap in terms of like what a VC values a company automatically becomes like almost like 50% higher. Now, to be able to exploit that, obviously, like any startup would have to do very standards-based computing as opposed to relying on very cloud-native tech from hyperscalers and use standardized open source-driven containers to deploy uh, open source software rather than relying on wrapped versions of open source software which are being run as a platform as a service from a hyperscaler to uh, kind of like take advantage of the higher margin and being able to use that margin to do research and development rather than spend the money on compute. So that's something that E2E is committed to deliver on. Now, apart from NLP, computer vision is an up and coming area. So, like, just as an example, like, for example, like, even some of the most qualified doctors find it hard to read, get a read on the video from an MRI. Now, they rely on very specially trained personnel to interpret the results of MRI. So basically, like this is not a replacement of people anywhere, but augmentation of what people can do. So kind of like right now MRI becomes like a very specialized tool for discovery, and it's a reconfirmation tool. Now with computer vision capabilities, like where computer vision software is automatically able to segment out areas from the video which a trained professional needs to pay attention to, it drastically cuts down the amount of time that a trained personnel has to spend, and also increases the effectiveness and efficiency of correctness of the diagnosis achieved via MRI. So like that, and then of course like to you and me who are not trained military personnel, if you are looking at a wide field which you are doing surveillance on uh, in the battlefield, so you are, I may not even be able to see what a trained sniper is able to see, but like a computer vision system can potentially scan a very wide field and segment out anomalies in the video to determine that like this is where people need to pay attention to. So then in a factory setting where a supervisor may not be able to visit every single lathe or plano-miller machine and figure out like, okay, where are the defects in the metal? So a bunch of cameras could augment those capabilities. So basically like computer vision not only can do some of the things that humans can do, but it can do a whole lot more of dumb grunt work that human mind when it is tired is designed to ignore. So computer vision is can produce a different type of intelligence than human intelligence, which can supplement what the human intelligence through vision can do for you. Then of course we are only talking about like uh, NLP and computer vision from the perspective of uh, kind of like what a camera can see. Then there are of course combination capabilities like so OCR. So computer vision can read the text, NLP can determine the meaning from the text, and then emotions can be added to the text which is being read, and emotions can be used to interact uh, with the end users. So like there are a lot of combinations possible between NLP and computer vision alone, and combine that with the potential sense of smell, combine that with data analytics capabilities, and uh, the canvas becomes very, very vast for playing with very large amounts of data and ingest that very large amount of data and try to achieve insights and outputs which are usable both as a either as a help or as a final decision point uh, for somebody in the pipeline to make the decision faster. So this not only produces like kind of like bigger economic outputs overall, but it also generates like newer type of jobs in the entire artificial intelligence pipeline, um, which can be exploited by the Indian economy to generate uh, more white collar jobs. So, like, of course, almost all the GPU infrastructure uh, that is primarily used by most of the developers and machine learning engineers and data scientists happen to be from NVIDIA, because NVIDIA has produced a lot of support in their CUDA and CU star libraries. So whether to ingest data in the data analytics space, or how to accelerate the databases by providing libraries to the database vendors, both open source and proprietary, and or to use ray tracing kind of like visual workstations. So all of those are provided by NVIDIA in two formats. So one is of course the consumer format to be used in a desktop or a workstation, but those for active formats of GPUs can rarely be used in a production pipeline for a cloud-driven artificial intelligence company. So, so those are much better supported by both the software as well as the hardware ecosystem on the cloud by NVIDIA in the form of like the new Ampere A100 cards. So currently we provide a 40 GB high bandwidth memory cards, which are the kind of like you can say a vast improvement over the Volta 100 or V100 32 GB card. So this can be used both for model training as well as for compute acceleration, as well as for doing inference at a larger scale. So A100 actually has a concept of something called MIG. So each container can have its own uh, what you call like isolated GPU instance, which is a part of the overall physical GPU, which can be used to accelerate the particular pipeline that this particular MIG is a part of, without getting impacted by the utilization of GPU resources in other pipelines. So the isolation level built in the new MIG infrastructure for A100 is much better than what it used to be in the V100. Then RTX 8000 and A40 are the latest two generations for visual workstation driven computing. So any ray tracing software for generating either lighting or doing any kind of visual computing gets accelerated by getting a workstation over the cloud, and gives you like a higher performance level than higher performance than using a local workstation, which is dependent on being able to set up the uh, kind of like high performance machines that can do those tasks. Then of course the smaller inference chips. So all of these are available on the cloud at E2E Networks, and we have integrated the main NGC containers via one-click deployment. for being able to either launch your own Jupyter Hub with Jupyter notebooks and do any data science kind of work using Python, using any GPU, using the GPU kernel at the backend. So using the containers, or being able to launch any of the inference libraries, or running the model development frameworks, and being able to deploy the main algorithmic models and being able to generate the model artifacts very, very quickly. So all of that is available at the GPU cloud at E2E Networks. And yeah, so basically, like, our focus has been on completely enabling the way data scientists and machine learning engineers work, and kind of like help them get started on our GPU platform very, very quickly, and being able to deliver the AI capabilities that the open source libraries built on top of the CUDA libraries from NVIDIA and their GPUs become available for their customers very, very quickly. So, and to top it all, like, since our focus is directly on making life easier for GPU users, uh, so we do that without any extra cost. Plus, typically compared to hyperscalers, while we do not offer any free credits, we do offer what you call like the GPU compute at like everyday low prices. So typically, you can reduce your cost by anywhere between 50 to 60%, even compared to 3-year committed instances at hyperscalers at E2E Networks Cloud. So, like, I would like to open up the field for any questions, discussions on chat.
Thank you, Tarun, for a very insightful presentation on this. And that was very good. I am sure the attendees will have a lot of questions around how to utilize the GPU specific infrastructure on E2E. And in between, we are also joined by the head of our COE. Um, can we spare a few minutes for Snehanshu to come in and give a few words on what our COE initiatives and other things?
Sure, Krishna, please. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll mute myself.
Welcome, Snehanshu.
Yeah.
Thank you, AP. Hi, Tarun. Hello, everybody. I'm so sorry to be somewhat rudely barging into this meeting. Tarun, I was listening with rapt attention to what you had to say. A lot of it made strong sense to me. I'll probably, I'm in the middle of a break, a meeting break, but then just had a couple of things to really share as to where this all began and hopefully where it is taking us. Where this all began is through a series of conversations that we've had with the AI ecosystem, the AI innovators that we work very closely with within COE. That is one of the bigger aims that we have to be able to provide the right kind of support to the AI startups that we accelerate in the Center of Excellence. And time again, very consistently, computing requirements have been one of the major demands, right? And when we probed into this a little further, we found out the reasons for this compute infrastructure. Although there were really a lot of cloud-based options that are available, but 2 or 3. One is typically startups have been very vocal about the need to not be tied to a particular platform, right? And then cloud service providers quite often do that. And that does not give them the real interoperability that they are quite often looking as creators, as innovators. The second reason is purely stemming in from this whole sort of data privacy perspective, which is where a lot of data that innovators work on, they do not want to actually push it to cloud. And hence with something that is more on-prem, something that is they have complete control on is what they would and their clients in turns would be more comfortable working with. So they were that is another key reason that they raised with us. And third, of course, the costs at times were not very, very conducive, and through this partnership we are trying to address that as well. So with these three in mind, we sort of went back and we tried to find out whether this was really the case elsewhere also. And very recently, we received a huge endorsement from a report that NASSCOM published in terms of trying to find out what are the AI enablers for a country such as India. And 5 building blocks came out, and not to our surprise, we found that there are 5 or 6 things that they're talking about very prominently. One is to have a really robust AI strategy. You need to have a data plan, a data strategy. The third is the technology stack, which is where this kind of fits in. Fourth is talent, and fifth is execution and governance. Now, with the whole focus around technology stack that we are talking in, what this is enabling innovators to do is to create that AI test bed for, and then you take that and you use it as a validation platform, which is so very important for a creative process like developing artificial intelligence solutions. I would just like to say that this, as I say, is a small step for us and a huge step for mankind. It is one of those things where we are trying to invest it in a controlled manner, giving a lot of freedom and flexibility for innovators to really come in, make the most out of the platform, benefit from it, and hopefully scale up from that point onwards. I think KP, look forward to having as many people make use of this support that we are trying to provide them. And we will be around to sort of handhold them through as many stages of the process as possible, right? So those were my 2 or 3 minutes. I just wanted to come in and meet up with everybody and leave you with these words. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Snehanshu, for giving your time into this. Of course, had to pull you out of another meeting. Thanks for your 5 to 10 minutes. That was really useful. And adding to what you said just now, one more area which the MSMEs also highlighted is because most of them are into building products and standalone products and platforms per se. Most of them also highlighted the fact that they didn't want to build dependencies on any third-party platforms and third-party softwares, etc. So that is another key area where a system or a setup like E2E will be very, very useful for especially the MSME ecosystem who are focusing on AI products focus per se. Yeah, as also Snehanshu mentioned, it is not just a one-off thing where we are actually looking at only AI HPC labs enabling the infrastructure and then we are let go of. It is that a whole host of things. So as a COE, we are offering in accelerating multiple areas. So once after this, you can actually reach out to us to explore further on what are the other areas we can help you with so that we can accelerate your innovation. Yeah, thanks Snehanshu for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Arun, Tarun, can you please proceed from where we are? I think there is a question in the chat window.
Sorry, I think I canceled the question, but anyway, let me try to answer that question. So the question talks about like economics of compute for startups and MSME. Now, typically we have seen historically MSMEs have spent between 5 to 10% of their cost on building IT and compute kind of systems in-house. And the similar ratios have existed on the cloud as well. Now, in case of startups, obviously none of those numbers hold good, simply because startups want to capture like very large total addressable market. So, for example, a typical India-focused startup who is trying to do like say a product targeting the entire India would ideally want to kind of like handle data which is being generated by like millions of users. So over there, the at the initial level, like the percentage of compute in terms of either the revenue or on a per user basis might not make sense at all. The only thing that any startup can try to do is to control those costs as early as possible by keeping the entire stack in their control. Like for example, at E2E, we do not pay on a per CPU basis to any hypervisor software vendor. So, which is what a lot of our other Indian compute ecosystem players do, and that drives up the cost of compute for them. So we have always been in the control of our destiny. So similarly, like startups need to be in control of their destiny by relying on a stack which is open source. So where in the future an opportunity to do something at a lower cost would come in, and then they would be able to grab that. Now at a scale, of course, like for AI driven startups today, we have seen that uh, the gross margins today are very, very low, especially in the emerging areas of NLP and computer vision. And the reason for that is because like even today, like AI has not been generally applied to very large markets, but even customer specific training pipelines have to be built, and outputs have to be produced by using very expensive ML engineers and data scientists to do something. Now, eventually, of course, like AI would have to generate margins similar to maybe not SaaS, but at least platform as a service kind of margins. So I would assume that like startups would have to target like between 50 to 60% margin, or at least 50% gross margin in case of AI-driven softwares or AI-driven ecosystems. So over there, the cost of compute eventually at scale should go down to 20 to 25%. So today, if you look at SaaS, that cost today is like more like 10 or 15%. So in case of AI, if it is 25 and 30%, then the cost of compute makes like a massive difference to the success or failure of AI-driven startups. So I hope this answers the question that was asked.
Yeah. Thank you, Tarun. Is there any other questions that you wanted to highlight? Yeah. Tarun, one more question from our side.
Sure.
Quite a few MSMEs today are also asking for managing, as you talked a bit about the stacks, the end-to-end stacks. Because just to elaborate a little bit more, they are looking at something like, we know for a fact that today, if you have to run NVIDIA, of course, NVIDIA is the leading platform on which the AI workloads for training are run. Of course, we need to manage things like starting from the operating system and then installing the NVIDIA CUDA related drivers, and then a certain version of Python and certain version of libraries and all those host of things.
So all of those are already pre-built in the form of NGC containers or very standardized distributions of softwares. So for example, for Python, like a lot of data scientists use the Anaconda, CondaForge type of ecosystem. So where all the libraries are like pre-deployed. Similarly, NGC is a collection of more than 100 containers. So every single open source software, all the major ones are like packaged with the correct versions to run with the correct version of CUDA. And CUDA libraries are of course like pre-installed along with the operating system, as well as wherever within the container, like if a different version is required. So yeah, so does that answer the question? Like, so like a lot of this grunt work like is already done on E2E cloud, and of course the other hyperscalers also do all of that work.
Oh, thank you. I think that answers the question.
Sure.
Is there any other questions from your side? Participants, you can either unmute and ask, or you can type into the Q&A window. Okay. So yeah, I think Tarun, that is all I think we have. If we have any, of course, the next steps as to how to proceed with that. If any of the participants or others are interested in onboarding,
Sure,
we can
sure.
you can actually reach out to us on the email ID which has been shared in the invite itself, and we can actually take it up further. And thank you everyone for joining in again. Any last words from you, Tarun, before we close the session? That will be really helpful.
Sure, Krishna. So at E2E, we are very, very happy to help connect any of the startups or MSMEs who are wanting to kind of like discuss about like what sort of stacks to use for which particular CU star libraries to use, where to particularly store the data. So like we are very, very interested in knowing how you are architecting, and we are very keen to understand like the trade-offs that you face, and in case like you would like to kind of like test out your pipelines with E2E, like we are also very happy to do POCs where you can try out like how to run the various parts of the pipeline on E2E cloud. So very happy to assist over there.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
Hubert is accessible, very, very accessible. I think Manohar Reddy is also accessible. So you can email hubert@e2enetworks.com or sales@e2enetworks.com, and salespeople will connect you to the right technology people inside E2E to kind of like have any kind of conversation about the how to build your data or AI or inference or labeling or any other kind of pipelines in production.
All right. So if there are no further questions, thanks a lot, Tarun, for joining us today and
Thank you,
spending
Supreme,
valuable time.
and thank you,
Yeah.
Sudhir.
Very glad to.
Thank you all for joining us today, and yeah.
Yeah, please reach out to us for any furthering the conversations in this area. Yeah, thank you, and have a very healthy and a good new year ahead.
Okay, Krishna. Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks.